You are sitting somewhere right now. A chair, a desk, a couch. That posture you are in is the first piece of information you would give away in any room you entered for the rest of your life, and you would not even know it. There are men who walked into rooms for 50 years and gave away nothing. Men whose presence rearranged how others sat, spoke, breathed. Men who never had to look at anyone directly to know exactly what was happening across the room. Most men confuse surveillance with watching. They are not the same thing. Watching is what guards do. Surveillance is what sovereigns cultivate. One requires effort. The other is built into how the sovereign exists. The man who has to look has already lost the room. He is reacting. He is processing. He is telling everyone where his attention is. The man who never has to look is the man everyone is watching and adjusting around. They cannot tell if he sees them. They cannot tell if he cares. They only know they are being assessed by someone who never gave them the courtesy of confirmation. Today we examine 6 tactics that build that presence. Not theory, not abstraction. 6 specific patterns of behavior used by men who controlled rooms, courts, empires, and intelligence services without moving their eyes. The first one is in your body posture as you watch this. Chapter Card 1. A library at midnight. 1 reading lamp. The figure at the desk does not look up when the door opens. This is the first tactic. The man who does not respond to entrance controls the entrance. Most men respond to every door, every voice, every notification. Their head tilts toward whatever announces itself. This is animal behavior, the orienting reflex, necessary in the wild, catastrophic in any room where status is being calibrated. When you look up at every entrance, you communicate one thing. Clearly, your attention is available. It can be commanded by anyone who walks through any door. Your status is ambient. Your time belongs to whoever wants it. The man who finishes his sentence before acknowledging an arrival has established something that cannot be undone in the rest of the meeting. He has signaled that his current task outranks the new presence. The person who entered must now wait for him. This is not rudeness. Rudeness is performed. This is something else, a revealed hierarchy that was always there. Cardinal Mazarin understood this in 17th century France, better than perhaps any minister before or since. After the death of Cardinal Richelieu in 1642, Mazarin inherited the position of chief minister to the young King Louis XIV. He was an outsider, Italian, distrusted by the French nobility. He had every reason to prove himself constantly. He did the opposite. When nobles arrived at his apartments, Mazarin would continue reading. He would not look up. He would gesture vaguely at a chair without breaking concentration on his correspondence. Visitors waited. They believed they were being snubbed. They were not. They were being classified. Mazarin would resume conversation only after he had finished what he was reading. By that point, the visitor had spent 5, 10, 15 minutes calibrating his own sense of importance downward. Whatever he had come to demand had quietly transformed into a request. Mazarin governed France for 18 years. He died in his bed extraordinarily wealthy, having weathered 2 civil wars that broke lesser men. Try this for the next 7 days. The next time someone enters a room, you are in finish whatever you are doing before acknowledging them. 1 full task, 1 full sentence, 1 full thought. Then look up. Watch what shifts in how they speak to you for the rest of that encounter. You do not need to be cold. You do not need to be theatrical. You just need to stop performing the orienting reflex on command. The bark you give to every door is the bark of a dog who does not yet know he is the wolf. Chapter Card 2. A walled garden in Madrid. Maps and dispatches stacked on a heavy desk. The man at the desk has not left this room in 3 days. The second tactic. The man who never appears is the man everyone imagines. Visibility creates familiarity. Familiarity creates calculation. The man whose schedule is known is the man whose movements can be planned around, intercepted, anticipated. The man whose schedule is private generates anxiety in everyone who must coordinate with him. You have done the opposite of this your entire adult life. You respond to every message within minutes. You confirm every meeting in advance. You announce what you are doing on social media without prompting. You have made yourself trivially predictable to anyone who wanted to know. Most men confuse availability with importance. They believe being constantly reachable signals that they are essential. The truth is inverted. The men who are essential are the men whose unavailability costs others money or position. Philip II of Spain ruled the largest empire in the world from a small study in the Escorial Palace from 1561 until his death. In 1598, he almost never traveled. He almost never appeared at public functions. He almost never spoke at council meetings. He read, constantly, every dispatch from every governor in the Americas, the Netherlands, Italy, Portugal, the Philippines. He annotated the margins. He wrote responses by hand. He made every significant decision personally. What he did not do was let anyone see him do it. Ambassadors came to Madrid for months and never met him. They negotiated with secretaries who delivered his written replies. The most powerful man in Christendom was to most of his own subjects in absence. This created an effect that no other monarch of the period replicated. His enemies could not study him. His ministers could not predict him. His own son could not anticipate him. Every action of his court was calibrated to a presence no one had directly observed. Philip lost wars. He went bankrupt 3 times. The Armada failed. But he held the empire together for 37 years through a single mechanism. He did not perform. He did not appear. He was referred to. He was speculated about. He was feared in proportion to how rarely he was seen. Reduce one form of your visibility this week. Pick one. Stop broadcasting your gym schedule. Stop confirming meetings until 20 minutes before. Stop responding to non-urgent messages within an hour. Watch how the people around you begin to wonder where you are when you are not there. The men who are constantly seen are the men no one bothers to remember. Memory belongs to the men who left earlier than expected. Chapter Card 3. A road in Britannia. A man on horseback rides past a Roman fort. He is dressed plainly. The soldiers do not salute. They do not know the emperor has just inspected them. The third tactic. The man who walks among them as if he were one of them sees what is true. You have been seeing performance for years. Every meeting you attend, every conversation in your workplace, every family gathering, what people show you is calibrated for who they think you are. Subordinate, peer, authority, threat. Each role triggers a different mask. Most men accept this. They negotiate the world through other people's rehearsed versions of themselves. They never see what is actually happening because they have made themselves visible enough that everyone has time to prepare. The men who saw the truth were the men who made themselves invisible for periods of time. Not absent, invisible, walking among the same people who knew them, but stripped of the markers that identified them. The Emperor Hadrian ruled Rome from 117 to 138 AD. Unlike most emperors who governed from Rome and trusted dispatches, Hadrian spent more than half his reign traveling. He visited every province in the empire personally, but he did not travel as the emperor. For long stretches, Hadrian dressed as a common officer or a private citizen. He stayed in roadside inns. He inspected fortifications by walking past them and counting guards. He attended military exercises without announcing himself. He sat in provincial law courts and listened to local disputes. What he learned in this way was unavailable to any of his predecessors. He saw which legions were genuinely disciplined and which performed discipline only when expected. He heard which complaints from provinces were real and which were manufactured for petitions. He understood the empire in a way no Roman ruler had since Augustus. When he returned to formal court, he could correct lies in real time. A governor who reported peace in a province where Hadrian had personally seen unrest could not maintain the lie. A general who claimed his troops were ready while Hadrian had counted only sleeping sentries could not survive the audit. The emperor's anonymous walks built the most stable period of the Pax Romana. His successors abandoned the practice. The empire began its slow decline within a generation. You do not need to disguise yourself. You need to remove yourself from the situations where everyone is performing for the version of you they have categorized. Take a different route to your office. Sit in a different part of the building during lunch. Show up to events you were not expected at. Go quiet on a project for 2 weeks and observe what happens in your absence. What people do when they think you are not watching is the only information that matters. You are about 13 minutes into this video. Your phone has vibrated at least once. You have not paused to check what it was. That decision, small, almost unconscious, is more discipline than the average man can sustain for 90 seconds. Most men interrupt themselves multiple times in any given hour. The constant self-interruption is not a character flaw. It is a learned dependency on the dopamine of incoming information. I mention this because the tactics in the second half of this video require something the first half did not. The first 3 tactics are about the man you appear to be. They are visible. They can be copied by any man who decides to copy them. The next 3 are about the man you actually are. They cannot be copied. They have to be built, and the building takes years. They are the tactics that separate the imitators of presence from the men who have it. If you are still here at minute 13, you have already proven something about your ability to focus. Most viewers have left. They went looking for something quicker, lighter, more validating. The ones still here are the ones who suspect that the real work has not yet begun. It has not. It begins now. Chapter Card 4. A counting house in 15th century Florence. The banker reviews ledgers. He has not raised his voice in 20 years. The 4th tactic. The man whose responses are predictable in their calmness creates more pressure than any man who shouts. You have been in rooms where someone raised his voice. You felt adrenaline. Your heart accelerated. You took the situation seriously for a few minutes, and then your body habituated. Within 20 minutes, you were calculating how to manage the angry man, not what he was actually saying. This is how most people respond to volume. The body adapts. The threat becomes ordinary. The shouter becomes a feature of the environment rather than a force within it. Now consider the opposite. Imagine you have been negotiating with someone for an hour. He has not raised his voice once. He has not shown any visible reaction to anything you have proposed. He has asked 3 questions and made 1 statement. You cannot tell what he wants. You cannot tell what he will accept. You cannot tell if he is annoyed. After an hour of this, your body is in a different state than after an hour with a shouter. Your heart rate is normal. Your breathing is normal. But you have made 3 concessions you did not plan to make. You have offered him terms more favorable than you intended. You have done this without noticing. Cosimo de' Medici understood this in 15th century Florence. As head of the Medici Bank, he conducted negotiations with the most powerful princes and popes in Europe. He had access to leverage no other banker possessed. He never used it overtly. In meetings, Cosimo would speak quietly. He would ask short questions. When provoked, he would pause for an unsettling length of time before responding, and his response would be calmer than the situation suggested it should be. Negotiators across the table found themselves modifying their positions without knowing why. They were not being pressured. They were being absorbed by a presence that gave them nothing to push against. Cosimo died with the unofficial title of Father of the Country inscribed on his tomb by order of the Florentine Signoria. He had ruled Florence for 30 years without ever holding formal political office. He had done it largely by being a calmness that other men found themselves making concessions to. For the next month, when someone tries to provoke a reaction from you, do not match their volume. Lower yours. Slow your speech by 20%. Pause 2 seconds before each response. Do not say anything you did not intend to say. The tactic is not silence. The tactic is friction. You become a surface against which their pressure cannot find purchase. Chapter Card 5. A trading floor on Wall Street. The old man enters. He says nothing. The room reorganizes around the path his eyes take. The 5th tactic. The man whose attention is a finite resource rearranges every room he is in. Most men distribute their attention promiscuously. They make eye contact with everyone. They smile at everyone. They acknowledge everyone. They believe this is courtesy. It is. But it is also the behavior of a man whose attention has no value. When attention is given to everyone equally, it is given to no one specifically. It cannot generate the effect that comes from being selected. It cannot create the absence that follows when it is withdrawn. The men who built fortunes and empires understood that attention is a currency. They spent it deliberately. They made eye contact with 2 or 3 people in a room and overlooked the rest. They greeted, some by name, and ignored others. They made the people they noticed feel chosen, and the people they did not notice work harder for the next opportunity. J. Pierpont Morgan ran the most powerful private bank in the world from the 1870s until his death in 1913. He was not a charming man. He had a deformed nose and a notorious temper. What he had was a physical presence that other men described as overwhelming. Visitors to his Wall Street office reported the same experience. Morgan would not look at them when they were brought in. He would continue reviewing papers. When he eventually raised his eyes, the visitor felt the full weight of his attention for perhaps 30 seconds, and then it was withdrawn. The visitor would leave the meeting having received less of Morgan's eye contact than he had expected, and would feel the absence as if it were a verdict. Senators felt it, presidents felt it, industrialists who controlled larger fortunes than Morgan's own felt it. He saved the United States banking system in the panic of 1907 by sitting in his library and selectively granting and withdrawing his attention from the bankers who had to come to him for instructions. You do not need to be J.P. Morgan. You need to stop spending your attention as if it costs nothing. In the next group conversation, you are part of. Do not respond to every comment. Do not laugh at every joke. Do not nod at every statement. Be selective about what you acknowledge. Watch how the men around you begin to adjust what they say to earn your attention rather than expecting it. The dog who pants at every passing scent is the dog who never tracks the right one. The wolf who sniffs only twice is the wolf the deer fear in the dark. Chapter Card 6. A gray office in Moscow, files, a telephone. The man reading does not need anyone to confirm that he reads everything. The sixth tactic, and the deepest. The man who is believed to know already is the man who never has to ask. Most surveillance is performed for an audience. Cameras displayed in shop windows. Security guards walking conspicuous routes. Notifications about who has read your message. The performance of watching is intended to deter behavior that the watcher could not actually monitor. The deepest tactic does the opposite. It produces in others the belief that they are already being watched without any visible mechanism. The watcher is invisible. The watching is total. The subject regulates his own behavior because he has internalized the possibility that anything he does might be known. This is psychologically heavier than any actual surveillance because the subject cannot verify when he is or is not being observed. He must assume he always is. Yuri Andropov became head of the KGB in 1967 and held the position until 1982, longer than any other KGB chairman in Soviet history. Under his direction, the agency did not become more visible. It became invisible. Earlier, KGB chiefs had cultivated public fear through arrests, purges, dramatic raids. Andropov reduced these. He understood that spectacle had become counterproductive. What he wanted was for every Soviet citizen to assume at every moment that someone might be listening, reading, watching. He did not need the assumption to be correct. He needed it to be permanent. His method was patient. He cultivated the belief that the KGB knew everything by occasionally demonstrating that they knew specific things they should not have known. A dissident whose conversation in his own kitchen was quoted back to him by an interrogator 3 months later. A scientist whose private correspondence with a colleague in Leningrad surfaced in an unrelated meeting. A diplomat whose offhand comment to his wife became a subject of polite inquiry. These were not random. They were curated reveals. Andropov's KGB released on average perhaps 3% of what they actually knew. The other 97% stayed silent, but the 3% created a population that policed itself because the citizens could not distinguish between the watched and the unwatched portions of their own lives. When Andropov died in 1984, he had achieved a psychological state across an entire empire. The empire collapsed within 7 years of his death because the next generation of leadership did not understand the mechanism he had built. You will not run the KGB. You will run small versions of this in your own life. When someone tries to mislead you, do not correct them in the moment. Wait 3 weeks. Then mention the specific detail that exposes the lie calmly in a context where it cannot be deflected. Once. Do this perhaps twice in a year. The people in your life will begin to assume you know far more than you do. They will edit themselves before you see them. The reputation of total awareness is worth more than total awareness itself, and it is achievable for ordinary men through patience and selective restraint. 6 tactics: not arriving, not appearing, not announcing, not reacting, not distributing, not revealing. You have noticed what they have in common. They are all subtractions. They are all forms of removal. The presence that controls a room is not built by adding intensity. It is built by withdrawing the behaviors that diluted what was already there. There is one question to leave you with, not for me to answer, for you. How much of your daily behavior is calibrated for an audience that has not been paying attention to you for years? Whatever percentage you arrived at, that is the percentage of your presence currently spent on people who would not notice if it disappeared tomorrow. You can begin recovering it on Monday. If something landed, the subscribe button is there. The next video covers 6 signs someone you trust is about to betray you. See you there.